of the bankruptcy, not forgetting the notice provision, and making sure that you're noticing the carriers of the claims is important. All right, so how about claims evaluation? Speaking of things we could do a whole panel on, probably multiple panels on that valuation in mass torts. A lot of times we take a past settlement approach, all but for the bankruptcy, what would these claims be valued at? And I think that it is a true statement to say that in established torts such as asbestos, it's a little bit easier. We have a lot of epidemiology models. I'm sorry, my screen just went sort of blank here, so I want to make sure everything's still working right. So we have some things in existence because asbestos has been around for a long time, although even those are getting called into question as to whether or not they're an appropriate thing. And a newer, less established tort might not have those sorts of past settlements to look at. Okay, my screen seems to have frozen here. Seth, can you advance the slides for me? Okay. So one area in the valuation, too, that I wanted to mention is I think it's tricky to have a valuation model in bankruptcy context that really takes into account all of the things that you would do in the tort system. So in a mesothelioma case, you've got 60 defendants that are named in one case, and as that case is developed in the tort system and discovery is taken in depositions, which of those defendants is responsible for more and how much that claimant gets paid by each defendant is incorporated in that. And that gets trickier when you're talking about current, or certainly when you're talking about future. What is it going to be that the claimant gets paid going forward? So is a mesothelioma enough? Is there some other sort of thing? And the same thing in the abuse cases. While we might have the case facts and the proofs of claim, it's a different situation, and what makes the claim high versus low is hard to ferret out. I think in the bankruptcy, it's a little bit different. So once we get that, though, and you have your evaluation and you have all your claims together, what claims are covered? So this is turning the law into math and allocating the dollars, and all, again, the allocation issues that we've discussed on this panel and that we talk about a lot in these coverage conferences, generally the trigger, number of occurrences, all the different limits, and being able to value those and say, okay, well, what's going to come out? How much of this is covered? How much is it not? What's going to insolvents? All of those different issues. You can fast forward to the, there you go. So I just have a couple of slides here because, again, I like the graphics. So the horizontal versus the vertical allocation, taking our claims valuation and anything that we've tracked with the coverage and being able to say, okay, well, here's one thing. Go to the next slide there for our horizontal. And then as we're doing our prior exhaustion and we put stuff on top, are we going to go on top of that 1984 year? Or are we going to have to go on the bottom? All of these coverage issues that would be in play outside of bankruptcy are there. I think one of the challenging things for consultants is we try to say, okay, here's the parameters and here's all the assumptions that I went to the, put into the model. Normally I'd be working with the carriers and the policyholder to get everyone on the same page. But now, you've got all these different committees and possibly different coverage councils and different positions, and trying to get everyone to agree on the parameters and share the information is challenging. And I think the bankruptcy proceedings themselves can sometimes get in the way of that too, in terms of it's beneficial if we can all agree to what we agree on, but it gets a little tricky. But once you get that organizing, that's something that the consultants can help with too, is disseminating all the policy evidence and where are the disagreements, and trying to do that in a standardized format. I think that's the end of my slides. I can't go to the next one, so I can't remember. One more. And that's a good segue into self-insured retentions.
Sure. In a bankruptcy, the distinction between the two, I think I already gave you, is probably familiar to people. The deductible is paid by the insured and by the insurer, and then reimbursed by the insured. Self-insured retention is supposed to be paid by the insured first, and then the insurer pays the excess over that. Bankruptcy treats those two things differently. If I'm looking at the debtor's exposure and they have a deductible, I'm less concerned about that exposure because the insurance company would, whether the debtor was in bankruptcy or not, would have to front the deductible and then be reimbursed. And so